Hey guys, today's question comes from Roro. And Roro's question is, in your opinion, what's the best ab move to activate and get the difficult lower and rectus abdominis, low abs? Here's the thing, a lot of people confuse the ab muscle a lot. I hear, how do I get the lower abs? How do I get the lower abs? I hear that literally once a week. Someone's asking about the lower abs, and it's not your guys' fault. That's what the media kind of puts out there. Like, oh, this will target your lower abs, 6-minute abs, this will get those lower abs, that type of thing. The reality is that most people will hold more body fat on their lower stomach than on their upper stomach. So that's why you see the upper abs way easier than you see the lower abs, because the lower abs come in last, because it's the last bit of body fat to leave. So you probably have equal development from your upper to lower abs. You just have more body fat on the lower abs because that's where most people store body fat. So first, make sure that's the issue, right? And then it just comes down to losing more body fat to see them. Now, the other issue that you need to take into account is there's this thing called the all or none theory of muscle contraction. So the all or none theory of muscle contraction basically states that either an entire muscle will be contracted or none will be contracted at all. So when we're talking about like a muscle fiber being contracted. So if I look at, let's say, my bicep, and my bicep, and I'm like, oh, I want to get my lower bicep more developed. Well, my lower bicep has a strand of muscle fiber that goes all the way up, way back here. Okay, so actually some of it's even back here. So because of that, this is one muscle fiber, right, going all the way down. There's thousands and thousands of them, right? But the one I'm contracting, when I go like this, I can't only contract this part of it. So me working my lower bicep more than my upper bicep and saying, hey, I want to develop my lower biceps, it's simply not possible. I either can develop all of it and contract all of it, or I can contract none of it. And that's called the all or none theory of muscle contraction. So when you look at the rectus abdominis and how that muscle lays out, you have your sternal origin, which it attaches here, and it attaches way down here at your pubis. So that is hundreds of thousands of muscle fibers going up and down. You're not going to only be able to contract just the lower ones and not the upper ones. So the thing is, you're likely contracting all of them. You're just not seeing them because that's where you hold more body fat. Now, another thing I will say is many people do their abs incorrectly, and I'm going to insert this video so you guys can learn how to contract that rectus abdominis optimally. Thanks so much for watching. Another tip for bringing that waistline down is we are going to train the abs a little bit, okay? So don't be afraid to train abs. All those things you hear about training the abs to get your waist bigger, that's not really a thing, okay? Now, if you did it really heavy exercises all the time, yeah, your waistline might get a little bit bigger. But we're gonna do these the way the abs are meant to be trained. Abs are an endurance muscle fiber, which means they are primarily red muscle fiber, and they don't get that big. So white muscle fibers get really big. So if you think of like explosive moves, and big people like football players who do explosive moves, that's a white muscle fiber person. If you think like runners and people who run long distances, that's a red muscle fiber person, and the abs are a red muscle fiber group, okay? So they're not gonna get that big, but you have to train them right, and almost everyone trains them wrong. So let's look at how the abs work, and let's make sure we're doing it right. Almost every muscle has an antagonistic muscle group, okay? So when you look at training the abs, the opposing muscle is going to be the erectors, okay, which is the lower back muscles. So the definition of abs contracting is to increase spinal flexion, okay, which means that her back is going to be rounded. So that is spinal flexion, and that's when the abs are contracted. You see how round her lower back is, though? That's very important. So her hips are tucked under, very round here, okay? Most people, when they contract their abs, they don't do this right because all they do is they bend at their hips basically like this. And what that does is it flexes the psoas muscle, okay? So when you flex the psoas muscle, it's kind of like you're sitting, and this is flexed. But your abs don't need to work here, okay? They will stabilize, but they won't be contracting, okay? So let's go ahead and show you the right and wrong way of doing abs. And I bet you a lot of you have been doing this wrong, so hopefully you pick up a tip from this. So go ahead and jump in. Now we're gonna show you the less correct way of doing this. She's going to come up with her body without doing any spinal flexion. So go ahead and go for it. You see almost everyone at the gym doing it this way. She's pulling mainly on her hip flexors, but her abs aren't even really in a contracted state. They're basically straight. Okay, so the abs aren't going to contract that way. Think of it like a bicep muscle. The bicep muscle doesn't contract this way, right? If you held a weight, you'd feel the bicep muscle stabilize a little bit, but it's not contracting optimally. We have to go like this to get the bicep to flex, which means we have to go like this to get the abs to flex. So it's a lot different move. It's a lot shorter movement, but it's the best way of doing it. So what we're going to do is a very small movement that looks like she's not doing much, but I promise you it's a lot more contraction on the actual abs itself. One of the key things is she's gonna breathe all her air out when she's doing this. When she's contracting, she's breathe all her air out. And then from here, she's gonna bend from here up, not from here up. So go ahead and contract. She'll bend the lower back, breathe out. She'll come down, but she won't go all the way down and rest her head. So breathing out, squeezing, really flexing the muscle. That's the key to this exercise, is really, really flexing the muscle and squeezing hard as you can. But as you can see, it's a very small movement. Now the next thing that she's gonna do to make this a little harder is she can put her hands way up here, which adds leverage to the exercise. Because her hands are farther away, there's kind of more weight. She can also grab a band, put a band down here. She can grab a plate, maybe a 10-pound plate, beat it behind her, and add more tension to that exercise too. This applies to every ab exercise you do. You have to get spinal flexion in order for the abs to contract optimally. If you're not doing that, your abs are not going to contract optimally. You're just going to stabilize the core. It's not going to do much besides get your hip flexors stronger. And they don't need to be any stronger because we get them really strong when we're sitting down.